Hey guys, LevelCap here, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Gaming. Custom matches are finally open to all players, for now anyway. Update 18 made the game's custom match system available for everyone. Previously, it was only open to PUBG partners. Custom matches support 3 modes, normal, zombie, and esports modes that uses the PGI 2018 rule set. Basic things like player count, weapon spawn rates, passwords, region, map, and weather can all be adjusted. Unfortunately, there are some major limitations. Currently, 10 players are required to start a match, and the total number of custom matches that can be created at once is limited to 10,000 worldwide. The big sticking point for players is the devs are considering making custom matches a paid feature in the future. Why this would become a paid system comes down to covering the costs of running the servers according to PUBG Corp. PUBG is one of the most successful and profitable games ever made. It currently has over 50 million units sold on PC alone. Its console and mobile sales have also been so successful that they've broken sales records multiple times over. And while the game's growth has been slowing down over the past few months, it's still head and shoulders above the next most popular games. If anyone can finance custom servers, you'd think it would be PUBG Corp. That said, no one but them knows what it takes to run servers for the game. Ultimately, all we can do is wait to see what they decide. It's certainly not unheard of to charge for private servers, but if there's no free server options for PUBG custom server matches of any kind, I can't imagine the community around custom matches is going to be too healthy. It'll probably be people fighting for a chance to get into a custom server. As for the other things Update 18 added, there's a new DMR exclusive to Sanhok called the QBU, and a new pickup truck called the Ronnie, which is also a Sanhok exclusive. The QBU replaces the Mini 14 on Sanhok. It has a standard magazine that holds 10 rounds of 5.56, which can be increased to 20 rounds with an extended mag. It also has a bipod that reduces recoil when firing from the prone position. The Ronnie holds up to 4 passengers and is built for off-road terrain. As for bug fixes, a bug that prevented you from dropping an extended mag with a full backpack has been fixed. The patch also addressed instances where your character would un-ADS unexpectedly. This week's event mode for PUBG is the return of Metal Rain. It's similar to a regular match, but players can find flare guns scattered throughout the map that call in care packages with extra weapons and supplies, or an armored UAZ. Metal Rain is only available on Erangel. The console version of PUBG was also updated to patch 17. This is the same patch that went live to the game's test server on Xbox last week. It brings the console build of PUBG roughly in line with the PC version, but there are still some differences. Islands of 9 recently made its debut on Steam Early Access, and the first patch for the game has recently launched. It's addressed a couple of major performance issues. The first big one was the game running in borderless full screen mode regardless of what setting you chose. This resulted in reduced FPS and a hefty dose of input latency. Another issue related to the inventory player model was also causing big FPS drops. That model has been temporarily removed until a proper fix can be implemented. If you're interested in my thoughts on Islands of 9, be sure to check out my early access first impressions video. In a bold move, Xaviant apologized for the release of their game, The CULLING 2, and are removing it from sale on all platforms. The game was heavily criticized, with many players calling it a cash grab. The original CULLING game was a melee-focused battle royale title with only 16 players per match. The CULLING 2 was essentially a clone of other popular titles in the genre, with more players per match, a focus on gun combat, parachuting into a match, and more. It bore little resemblance to the original game and was generally just a buggy mess. As part of their apology, the devs are rolling back the original game to its day 1 patch and will refocus their efforts on finishing it from the ground up. It's very uncommon for a developer to willingly remove their game from all platforms and go back to an earlier game's development. If Xaviant actually follows through with it, this could mean great things for the CULLING. At its launch, the CULLING was generally praised by players for being a fresh take on the then just emerging battle royale genre. Things quickly went south though as the devs rushed balance updates out for the game, and it was eventually overshadowed by more popular titles. Fear the Wolves' early access launch date has been pushed back a few weeks so the developers can address the game's major technical issues prior to release. No exact date was given. It's been playable as part of a closed beta event for a little over a week now. Since the closed beta launch, numerous issues with the game's performance, features, and general design have been discovered by players. Of course, the game does have its merits. Its setting and design stand out from the crowd in many ways. If the devs can get the game more polished and balanced, Fear the Wolves has the potential of being a fairly solid title. Coming hot off the wheels of making $1 billion with Fortnite's microtransactions, Epic have updated the Unreal Engine 4 to version 4.2. This update makes porting Unreal Engine 4 games from PC to the Switch or mobile platforms much smoother. It also introduces a new method of rendering distant objects to minimize pop-in that happens when moving. This kind of technology was critical in making Fortnite play smoothly, for instance. The update should offer some performance improvements overall for Unreal Engine 4 games, such as PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. However, when the developers choose to port their games to the new version of the engine is totally up to them, and not something that's likely to happen overnight. Halo fans that were worried the next game in the franchise, Halo Infinite, would include a Battle Royale mode can rest assured that 343 aren't doing one. The game is a direct sequel to Halo 5, but is being built from the ground up in a new engine to more closely resemble the original design and aesthetics of earlier Halo games. As with many other big franchises, there's always a concern that the devs will tack on a popular feature from other games to boost sales. In rare cases, it turns out to be a feature worth adding. But most of the time, players at least feel like it took away from other areas that could have used more attention. 343 have ruled out a Battle Royale mode for Halo Infinite, saying the only BR they're worried about is the battle rifle. The next update for No Man's Sky, called Next, is essentially a complete overhaul of the game. It adds proper multiplayer, which was heavily advertised ahead of the game's launch, only to not be present at all on release. You can play co-op with up to 4 players, or you can go off and find other random players to help or even attack them. Base building will be greatly expanded to include building on every inch of the planet's surface, including underwater. The actual size and complexity of structures will be seriously expanded. As for visual improvements, rendering of terrain and all the general look of the game will be updated to be more detailed and rich. Next, we'll also add full support for both third and first-person perspectives. Also, ringed planets will finally be added to the game's universe. Next launches on the 24th. Hopefully it brings No Man's Sky up to par with what the devs originally promised it would be. Retro indie shooter Ion Maiden has been delayed. The game is being built in the same engine as classic shooters like Duke Nukem 3D and Shadow Warrior. The delay was made to add proper multiplayer support to the game. This could mean that traditional deathmatch, co-op gameplay, or even something else is being added to the game, but nothing yet has been revealed. Generally speaking, Ion Maiden has been pretty well received and is currently available in an early access state on both Steam and GOG. The June progress report for RPCS3 PlayStation 3 emulator project has been released. In it, the developers announced support for PlayStation 1 title emulation. The list of compatible games is limited to the PlayStation Network versions of PS1 games, but is still a big step for the overall progress of the emulator. Many PS3 titles have also been added to the playable list as new fixes in the emulator's accuracy and feature set have been made. The upcoming beta for The Division 2 is now Ubisoft's most popular beta ever, despite still being probably months away. Registration is 4 times greater than the original game's beta, which was Ubisoft's biggest beta until now. No release date for the beta has been announced, but the game is expected to release in March of 2019. Remedy have likely put the final nail in Alan Wake's coffin. The developer recently confirmed that Microsoft has no interest in financing a sequel to the wildly successful single-player shooter from 2010, despite a huge demand from it from fans. Remedy also confirmed a sequel to their blockbuster Xbox One and PC title, Quantum Break, is equally unlikely to happen. Remedy are currently working on a new game called Control that seems to build on mechanics from both Alan Wake and Quantum Break. In our final story this week, Ubisoft are working on a big rebalance of Rainbow Six Siege's most popular operators. The Year 3 mid-season update is currently available on the game's technical test servers and includes tweaks to Finka, IQ, Blackbeard, Glaz, Twitch, Jackal, Frost, and Dokkaebi. The changes are mostly small tweaks to the operator's weapons and or gear, with the goal being to make them all a little less powerful. Pretty much every other operator is also being looked at for potential tweaks. The big rework of Tachanka has been talked about for the past couple of months, but is still under wraps. And that wraps it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what articles you thought were the most interesting in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.